So what did you make, Chris, of Andrew Parker's comments?
Well, the interesting thing about these comments in particular are that they're now much more open than they've ever been before. Previously, MI5, GCHQ, MI6 used to stay below the surface. Now, there's a real reason that they're coming out and telling us about this, because there is a need, there is a problem with terrorism, there is a thing that we have to face as a society, and they're coming out and telling us, which is unusual.
And the other problem that they're talking about is they need more transparency. They need to have more access to our personal files, our personal details, things on our computers. And why do they need to do that in order to help stop terrorism?
Well, I think fundamentally it comes down to social media and how groups like ISIS are using and exploiting that. It's the encryption that protects them. And the security services need more engagement by the social media platforms to allow them to be able to look at certain cells, because as they're planning these things, unlike it used to be with Al-Qaeda, where it was small groups that were operating together, we've got the lone actors that we know about, the lone wolves. And trying to get this information, the recruiting especially, which is one of the key issues that ISIS is using, they're using social media to do so. And at the moment, social media like Facebook and Twitter and various others will notify the individual if the security services request information to access their page or their feed.
Right, I see. I mean, they've said already that they've foiled 6 major attacks, so there'll be people at home thinking, well, why do they need this information? Because they seem to be doing a very good job at the moment already.
And I think that is the key point, that we become complacent. As a society, we become complacent because nothing's happened. But actually what they're trying to say to us is, look, things are happening behind the surface. There are investigations going on which are being... they're finding very difficult to do because of the change in nature of the threat. The evolving threat is changing more or less onto line. You know, we do our shopping online now. We do, you know, who's policing the online stuff? Bearing
in mind that there's, as Holly was saying, that they've foiled 6 this year, and they seem to want more and more access. The government is going to propose a new law, Will, that UK spies are allowed to have access to whatever they like.
This not only helps them intercept certain cells, but it also gets them to understand far better this whole radicalisation process. We're hearing more and more about how the government and various other groups are trying to work together to try and intercept that recruitment online of getting individuals to join them. Now, it's not to say that they'll be able to look at, you know, my cat pictures on Facebook, you know, or they're going to be interested in that. They only have a limited resource to look at certain individuals which are persons of interest.
But I think what they're suggesting is they should be able to have carte blanche to look at anybody they choose to, rather than specifically identify individuals and then search their internet history.
Well, it's a bit of both. I mean, there will be oversight and there will be transparency, but at the moment they need to get, obviously, the request from the Home Secretary to look at certain accounts and to enforce the social media to reveal that information. So, because these operations can run so quickly, they need to be able to have that streamline or that fast track to get to that information.
We've got a comment here from Vicky. She says, I think the only thing the public can do is to be vigilant and live our lives doing what we have been doing for years. But you say there are things you can do. There are things you can do as an individual to stay safe.
Yeah, but Vicky's absolutely right, because the whole point of terrorism is to change what we do. The worst thing that we can do is go and lock down our society and do things completely differently. But we can be vigilant. We can actually report things that we see that are suspicious. And actually, one of the things that you want businesses to do is actually think about the what-ifs. What if this did happen? What if we did have a major incident in London? How would we cope? And things like that. And you can take that from right up in the business level, right down to the individual.
With that in mind, Will, is it inevitable? Is it inevitable that there will be a terrorist attack at some point on a major city in the UK?
Regrettably, Ben, I think it is. And the security services only have a finite amount of resource to try and intercept. They've mentioned 6 particular major incidents that they've thwarted, and those are only 6 major ones. I'm sure there are plenty more which they haven't revealed or disclosed. So, regrettably, unfortunately, in the climate that we're operating in right now, and there's no foreseeable end to it, as we can see at this current time, I think something will happen. And unfortunately, without wishing to be too pessimistic, it's not a question of if, it's only a question of when.